Hi there. In this video, we'll be covering write a book with ChatGPT. I've spent the past few years telling people not to write a book with ChatGPT, and I still kind of hold firm on that, but at the same time, I recognize that you're probably thinking about doing it anyway, and I want to give you some tips and ideas. I want to at least make you think about this process. Think about the writing process, think about the book that you're creating, and some of the things that ChatGPT maybe doesn't do so well that you're going to have to include in the book in order to be successful with it. By the end of this video, you'll learn ChatGPT's power with research and ideas, where ChatGPT falls short, and why it's so important to find your own boundaries and preferences when dealing with LLMs like ChatGPT. And stay tuned until the end of the video for an opportunity I really think you're going to enjoy. Let's dive in. The reality is lots of people write their book with ChatGPT, and I would say most of those books get forgotten and ignored. If you simply just want to write a book with ChatGPT, go for it. Who's stopping you? At the same time, let's be realistic about everything it entails. There's a reason why books written with ChatGPT typically aren't successful or typically don't accomplish the goals of the reader. And it really boils down to writing a book that a reader is going to be engaged with and pulled in by. If this is all the same material that people can find by going online searching for it, it's not a big lift, you know? What is the message that you're really sharing that's unique and different, you know? The power of a great book is being unique and being different and having an original voice. And all of those things typically fade away or get diminished by using ChatGPT. With that said, where ChatGPT is really powerful, and other programs like it, is through research and ideas and outlining. One of the ways that programs like ChatGPT, LLMs like ChatGPT and others are most powerful is by outlining, by research, and by idea creation. You know, when you're stuck coming up with an idea, you can simply go there and just plug it in and say, give me ideas. They might not be good ones, which requires you to really be vigilant about it, but you can get ideas, you can get words, you can get what you want simply by typing this in. You know, and it really comes down to prompting. You know, it's like garbage in, garbage out. Like, if you don't give it good prompts, you're not going to get good outcomes. Whereas if you spend the time to prompt better, you can get better outcomes. But with ideas, you know, it's often that I'll work on a book about something, a topic, a business topic, whatever, that I don't have tons of experience and expertise in. The person I'm working with, the author I'm working with, is the expert on the subject matter. I'm the expert on storytelling. We come together and collaborate. So I will go into meetings with the author not being an expert on specific topics. So I'll go to ChatGPT and say, give me examples of this in everyday life. Give me questions I should ask about this. Give me topics to think about exploring this. I use ChatGPT as a backup, a safety net, to let me know where my blind spots are. Where am I missing things? Where can I learn something? And it's important to be able to think of it in those terms. You know, another great tool and a great use for ChatGPT is outlining. You can plug in different ideas and say, give me an outline, and it will give you an outline in the matter of moments that typically would have taken weeks to put together. So it's definitely great to be able to have that resource for outlining, for ideas. People use it for research too. I'm not really impressed, to be honest. As somebody who's a journalist and longtime book writer, I'm not really that impressed by the material that is being regurgitated by ChatGPT and other sites. I will say this, I think it's great that the links are being included where you can actually go and click on the original source material. That is helpful. You know, so and that's one way I do use it for research is if I'm having trouble finding information, I might go to ChatGPT and search for something, then use the sources that they list to really look at the first level of research, that first wave. Like, this is what this is based on. I want to click on that. I want to read that information because that could be useful. So research is definitely one area where ChatGPT could be helpful. It's ultimately good for simple tasks like sending an email, you know, writing an email draft, you know, sending a quick message to somebody, quick, short. You know, these aren't really too complicated things. Making a quick chart of something. Books are more nuanced and complicated. You know, books are more delicate. It's not as simple as simply plugging it in and voila, you have a book. while people do that, like it's formatted weirdly. It's, not reader friendly at times. So it's really important to think about it in terms of that. It's easy to use ChatGPT for simple tasks. Book writing is not a simple task. Book writing is a deeper concept. One of the ways that ChatGPT fails writers is by writing in a way that blurs or diminishes or conceals or weakens their writing voice. Everybody's writing voice is unique to them. And ChatGPT's efforts are often leaning on this idea that everybody's writing can sound pretty much the same. It's homogenizing writing, and because of that, it's taking out the uniqueness from users' writing voice, to the point where I've worked with people who've actually lost their writing voice and were subsumed by the writing voice of the ChatGPT, that they wanted to sound so much like ChatGPT, their original speaking and writing voice didn't sound right to them anymore, which was sad to me, Writing voice matters. Writing voice is so important, and I get it when you're not a strong writer. If you're not a strong writer and not somebody who's really dedicated to the craft, it's easy to say, I just want to have words down. I get that, 100%. Yeah, I know people who actually use ChatGPT to even, create a model of themselves, and they can plug different things in. They can kind of train the AI model based on their writing and their videos and their blog posts, and they can then use that to train different responses. Even then the writing feels just a little bit off to me, and I think it's important to retain as much of our own writing voice as we can, If we do use ChatGPT, to use it as a tool and a resource, not so much as providing the material itself. Ultimately, it's up to you. It's up to you to find the boundaries. It's up for you to find what you feel comfortable with. I know for me, early on, after ChatGPT came into existence and people started using it to write their books, I sat there for hours on a weekend afternoon and tried to write a book about James Buchanan, the 15th president of the United States. He's from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. And I thought it would be neat to write a book about James Buchanan with ChatGPT. So I spent an afternoon playing around with it, and it was immediate that the information was not accurate. It was just wrong. It wasn't even like an interesting interpretation. It was just wrong. It was factually inaccurate. I don't rely on it for research like that. I know if people will just send me blocks of text, I got this from ChatGPT. I just kind of ignore it. I'm like, I don't really want this. And I think that one of the big drawbacks is you don't know where the information's from, and you really need to dig deeper in figuring it out. Beyond that, it just sounds a certain way. When you read it, it reads a certain way. I've actually seen programs pop up online. They'll say, $79 to write a book with ChatGPT. Read the book and see what it reads like. It doesn't even read like a book. It's just a bunch of garbled text plugged in one after another. I know that the AI models will get better and better over time. I think that there's so much value in being original and bringing your own creativity to it. And you can compare it to buying a burger at a fast food restaurant versus buying a steak dinner. They're both similar in a way, but they're both very different. And I think, writing a book with ChatGPT versus writing a book yourself is a very different process. And there's so many little elements that ChatGPT isn't going to get about book writing. What is your reader journey? What is your call to action? What is the message and the lesson that the reader's going to take away from your book? After the reader reads your book, what do you want them to do next? How do you want them to act? What do you want them to sign up for, to visit, to do? Could be anything. There's all these different elements that you really need to be able to answer for yourself about your book. And when you leave that to ChatGPT to fill in the blanks, you're going to miss out. But this is about doing what feels comfortable for you, doing exactly what you think is within your wheelhouse. I'm not looking down on anybody if they choose to use ChatGPT, especially if it meant otherwise I wasn't going to finish the book. I get it. It's empowering to have that technology available to you, especially if you're writing something that's, relatively straightforward. I just warn and caution you, is there something deeper here that you want to focus on? Is there a deeper story that you're telling? Is there more than just this regurgitated book? Is there more that you can do to create originality around it? I think there is. If you're interested in learning more about write a book with ChatGPT, there's definitely another video I want you to check out. I'll link to it on the screen. It's called Tips for Writing a Book in 2026. That video really covers from soup to nuts the entire strategy of book writing, really thinking about what it means to write a book, the path to publication, and just the transformation that can occur from writing your own book and really putting your best effort into it. Remember, a good book can change your life. I'm Dan Good. Thanks for watching.